Hey guys, it's me, Danny. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Salem's Lot, the 1979 miniseries based on the book written by Stephen King. Tons of people love this movie, but there are actually different versions of the movie that have been released. And a lot of discussion has been going on online about the different versions and what are the differences. So, you know what? I thought I'd meet up with a couple of my friends who love the movie just as much as I do, and we can help break down the differences and the different releases and different versions. Plus, we're just a couple of guys sitting around talking about a movie that we love more than any other. So that's what we're doing on this episode. Let's get to it. Well, guys, I am honored to be once again joined by my friend, Boogeyman Ben, Mr. Ben Ottaviano. Ben, thanks for hanging out with me again, man.
It's an honor and a pleasure always, man.
Yeah, awesome. And we're joined by a new face today. This is Mr. Sam Straub. You're from California. You're out there in California too, right, Sam?
Actually, I was born and raised in California, and I live in Portland, Oregon. So,
that's
wow.
right. You're a little north.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Right. Well, now, Sam, you probably know just about as much as anybody about Salem's Lot, right? You're a lifer.
I was a lifer. Yeah, I was 7 years old when it first aired. I don't remember too much of the first part. I'm very much like Ben. I think our parallels are very, very much lined up.
Yeah.
I remember the TV guide, basically. I just remember this cover.
I found that cover just recently. I found that issue just recently.
And, of course, when you're that age, you haven't really read words. You're not containing words, but you just see this and you're like, okay, something unique is about to happen.
Yeah.
There is something that is not every day that pops out like a cartoon or a sitcom back in the 70s. We're talking something that is just mesmerizing.
Yep.
And it wasn't so much of the characters. I just got fixated on Ralphie Glick at the window.
Yeah.
And started drawing him in school, drawing him on my books, anything that I can draw on, because that seemed like the centerpiece at the time before it really came out.
Yeah.
It drew you to it. It was just this posture and nothing else.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh,
I was just saying, that's really cool. I love that. I wish I could find one of those editions there.
Most likely eBay or an old thrift store.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
I got that one. I just got that one as well on eBay. But the other one I found, it was like finding a needle in a haystack. I found it at a thrift store in Martinez.
Yeah,
so
it is certainly a hunt, Danny, but if you can get it, it's definitely worth it. It's just one of those memorabilias that hasn't been reproduced, or Warner Brothers hasn't done any reproduction. It's us fans that just go, hey, we show the fans or newcomers that are coming into the field of how significant this thing really stood out at the time and what it still represents today.
Right.
Most of the people have this, obviously. I don't know if you've got that.
I got that.
So,
well, that's how I discovered that it was shot in Ferndale. Well, it's a long story, but that's how I verified that it was shot in Ferndale. I'll say it. If you watched my life in the lot, you find out that how I discovered it. I found out just how I accidentally stumbled upon Ferndale when I was young.
Which, by the way, Ben, I was just going to tell you, Ben, that is a fantastic documentary. You put your heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears into that thing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. I was very angry last Monday when they pulled it down, because YouTube did pull it down.
Really?
There was 10 seconds of footage that they deemed, I knew they were going to ding me, and I put it out there because I just wanted it to be an experience. I don't do this to make money. I do this because I love it and I want to share it with everybody. Absolutely. So I knew it was going to be dinged because I used the music, I used clips from the film. I feel like you can't show that without the Harry Sefton score, because I'm just like, that brings you right in. As soon as you hear the first notes, you're into it. Yep. And there was one shot when I'm at 850 Bluff, and I'm right by the telephone pole, and I had put it against the scene where Ben and Straker first lock eyes when he's coming out of the house, walking down the steps. For some reason, that clip of him getting into the car, driving down the path and driving past Ben, they deemed that as, you can't have that. So I literally had to cut that out of it. I re-uploaded it, and it's been fine ever since, knock on wood. So they haven't seen it. without all the music, all the other clips I put in it. I mean, I have clips, I have the trailer in it. For some reason, it was that 10-second clip that
That's
they
insane.
flagged and said it was blocked worldwide. So I had to completely,
Good.
so they blocked it. I had it up for, I think, about an hour and a half, and then they pulled it down. So then I had to like retool the whole thing and then put it back. So
That's hysterical because it's not the main scene or the main thing that's the focal part of the film. It's
I
just
kept thinking it was music. And there was one scene, a couple scenes where I used some of the dialogue, the one with Weasel and Gillespie. I just had him say, "Weasel, what are you doing out here, Weasel?" That whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I had the scene between Ben and Gillespie before he leaves. Those are like the prominent ones where I had like dialogue because there's no real music in those. So I said,
Yeah.
well, I'll have the music, I'll have like a little bit of dialogue and then kind of maybe have a voiceover for the scenes.
sure.
Not so much the Gillespie one, because I was like, it's pretty straightforward here, but with the house where Weasel is spying on Crockett and Bonnie, I met the woman that owned it. So it's like I said, this is where Holly lives, and talked about that interaction. So that's where but yeah, I kept thinking, oh God, what is it? Am I gonna have to trim this whole thing down? So I actually I had it saved in 3 different ways. So I said, if I have to go back in and retool anything, it's not going to be that difficult. But to put it together, I shot half of it in April and half of it in June. So it's like I went back twice. I just had an opportunity to go back the second time.
Yeah.
And then I worked on it from the middle of June until when I pushed it. I finished editing it the day before I published it. So it was,
Wow.
and my wife was just so like tired of hearing about it. And it's like, what do you think of this clip? It's like,
Just finish it.
just put the damn thing up and stop talking to me about it.
Man, dinner's on.
I know it was. I mean, she's a good sport. I mean, that opening shot driving up to the house at night, she shot that. So
Yeah.
I was driving the car. So it's like she shot that whole thing. She said, "Let's drive up there at night," and I said, "Perfect."
Great night, because between the moon and the clouds and just
Oh yeah, she got that whole moon shot and everything. It was a beautiful night. It had rained the day before, so it was just really beautiful there that day and that night.
So cool.
Yeah.
I just want to let you two know as well, Dave, that the interview with Julie was just, it was so down to earth and just so wonderful to hear her connect with you, because I don't know how many people connect with her these days, or even if they know what she's been in, except us, the older generation. But that was a fantastic connection as well.
Yeah, thank you. It was such an honor. It's been an honor to talk to anybody from that cast, but just as nice as she could be. I felt like she even said, we're friends now, Danny. I think
that was sweet. I like that.
Yeah, and I thought, what? So but anyway, I was going to talk about some different versions. I see all people on the Facebook pages and things, they're talking about the different versions of Salem's Lot, US version, overseas version. And so I wanted to kind of get you guys to help me break down some of those differences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, basically, obviously, remembering it when I was 7, when it was on TV, didn't really see the first part as much, but definitely, like I said, was definitely full throttle for the second part, the following weekend. And I remember seeing it on TV when I was 14, 15, because I was living in the Bay Area as well. And by the way, Ben, I know what TV 44 is. It's based out of San Francisco.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, therefore, I have the pleasure of showing you guys when I was 14 that I dubbed it from
from
44.
TV. That's great.
Parts. And they did it just like TV 44, at least back then, where they aired it one week and the next week you got the other.
Yeah.
School ways. And then when I got to be about 15, I started to see this in video stores. It's the movie.
Yeah.
And when you're that young, you're not connecting miniseries. You're a way to really establish what the movie was with the miniseries. And even then I was like, wait, there's a lot missing from this. There's a lot of content, a lot of dialogue that is completely hacked in so many spots, where they're just going in for the jugular. They're going in for the scenes that are much darker, and it's more shock value overseas. Maybe people back there just didn't have the patience to sit through that much dialogue and that much of a buildup to get to what leads as a shock value. But I rented this every single weekend with my mom when my parents split up. Bless my mom's heart, I maybe had 5 minutes to check in with her, and then boom, I was in the bedroom watching Salem's Lot, the movie. This is an actual copy from 1985. This is from the original owner that owned the video store, and he gave it to me.
Wow,
because he recognized me every Sunday coming in wanting to rent this puppy. So I have it.
Very cool.
It wasn't until I was maybe 18 where I went on TV 44 and realized, oh, okay, they have the miniseries. It's broadcasted in 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously in 1999, and obviously Ben can attest to this, it came out as a double VHS tape copy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was the miniseries. I think it was the first time Warner Brothers finally got that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was by popular demand or there was just, much more reaction and like, hey, I remember this, but this was cut. Why is it this condensed?
Absolutely.
And I used to have those, had a fire, but got rid of them, but basically have the very first DVD edition of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized there was much more to it. And finally, I was old enough and much more coherent to understand what was missing before.
Yeah.
So the obsession became much more broader. It became much more mysterious. I think it was much more of something that seemed extremely realistic. There wasn't hardly any gore.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much dialogue between Ben and Stryker. There was just exchanges. There was a lot of looks. There was a lot of emotional exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
For someone who really wasn't into dialogue, because it just gives it away, you just kind of made up your own little mysterious interpretation. So I was really intrigued with the full-length version, and also intrigued with the movie, because the movie does have slightly different scenes, slightly
Mm-hmm.
different takes. The lines are said differently.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a lot that I picked from. And obviously with the opening scene, it doesn't start with the church. It just goes into the big moon.
Yeah.
Right.
Just starts with the opening credits. Yeah.
And if you listen to the score, it's much more dramatic and much more aggressive. It has a lot more in your face. It's not just, it contains that, but it's a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like it really brings you in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like in your face, like, okay, this is not just a horror movie. This is something that has a little bit more meat and potatoes than what was issued here in our country.
Mm-hmm.
But I also noticed too, is that the soundtrack was very quiet and kind of hidden. Therefore, things like closing doors, footsteps, various sounds, keys jangling, were really put up to the forefront, and the music was just kind of off in the parking lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I
toned down.
I noticed that it's funny. I have the I think it was Entrada that put it out initially. Just 1 second. I have it right here. So let me just give me 1 second here. You can cut this out if you want to, Daddy. Let's me hunting for it because I have it right here. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. So yeah, I think this was so I have the score. I don't know if you guys can see it very well, but this has all of the. It's very small, but that it has like it's several discs and. No, I mean, actually, no, it's 2 discs, and it has both the TV edits, or the TV score, and then the movie score. So you can hear the differences between what was aired during the miniseries and then what was aired during the movie, because I remember, much like you, Sam, it was kind of like I remember the score really bringing me into it, because I didn't see part 1 of the miniseries until I was about 11, because they hadn't aired it again, or I didn't see it aired. Like I said in the documentary I did, I think they aired it in one. I could be wrong. Again, I was 11 years old, but I could have swore that they aired one on Thursday night and one on Friday night. Because I asked my father. My parents split up when I was 2, but my dad had the first VCR. He was one of the people that had the first VCR that I can remember. And I asked him to record it for me. Yeah. He had been remarried a few times at this point, but they recorded, but they just pretty much stuck the tape in, hit record. So all the commercials were in it. He didn't want to watch it because at this point, I was 11. I really got into the movie when I was about 7 or 8 years old. So he was sick of me watching that movie. He got so tired of me watching it every Saturday morning, because I usually went to him every other week. I would stay with my dad every other weekend. Yeah. And my stepmom, not the one that he's married to now, but my stepmom at the time had recorded the movie off of HBO or Showtime or whatever it had been on.
Yeah.
And I started watching that. But it's funny, even at that age, I still remember realizing there was something missing, because I remembered the end of part 2 of the miniseries where they're in Guatemala. And I go, wait a minute, what happened to Susan? I remember that even as a young kid, like going, because in the movie, they set the house on fire and drive away, and pretty much that's the end of the movie. And you're going, no, there's more. There's more
Right.
to it.
Yeah, all you see is the moon, and then
Yeah,
that's
you
it.
see the moon and the skull face, and it's
Yeah.
over. And I'm like going, okay. I'm like, because I remember even at that age, I'm like, there's more to this.
Yep.
And so I didn't get a chance to see that until I was older. And once I saw that full miniseries, I pretty much was like, I'm done with the movie. That's just how I felt, because I was like, the movie isn't everything. And for me as a kid loving something, I wanted everything. I wanted to see the full version of it. So I've only revisited the movie version of Salem's Lot. I revisited it back in 2019 when I bought a copy of it. Now I have several copies of it like you. I have it on beta. I have it on VHS. I actually still have the 2 tape release, and I still have all the stuff I bought. I remember buying the 2 tapes when they released the full miniseries. I believe it was in Christmas.
It's really hard to believe that this was a beta tape. These things definitely do not have longevity.
Yeah, I bought them from this guy on Instagram called Sales from the Dead. He actually had both of them. And my friend Matt Seiler, who goes by Seiler Tattoo, told me about the VHS copy. I bought that from him in 2020, and then last year he had the beta, and I bought that from him. Okay. And then I just recently got it on Laserdisc, but I framed it, so it's in a frame on the wall. Yeah, because it's
really funny because my fiance thought it was an album because it literally is the size of an album vinyl.
It's a record. Yeah, it looks like a record.
Like you got the soundtrack on vinyl.
But this is if you guys ever get a chance, this and Waxwork Records did put out the score on vinyl.
I think I remember seeing on eBay, and it goes for a pretty penny. But if your fans like we're all here, that's definitely worth investing.
I ordered it the day it went on sale, and I was like going, and it didn't sell. And it's funny, it didn't sell out right away. It came out in, I'm going to say, I think I got it in October of 2016. Okay. It came out, like, I think they announced it at the end of, and I didn't have a record player at the time. So I got a record player for Christmas, but I said, I have to have this. Yeah. And totally. the art on it is beautiful. It's really, really cool. Yeah. It's got the crate on the back of it. It's got Ralphie. It's got Barlow. It's got Mike Ryerson, the Marston House. Everything's great. And it sounds fantastic. And, but I remember I was like, I have to have this. And and I think because there's not a lot released of Salem's Lot. I know we were going into scenes, and I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but it's like, I think it's just that there's so little made of this movie. There's so little, there's no figures unless you're going with a custom. There's not a lot of, anything really brought out about it. There's been little things here and there, like the studies in the horror film book, the Tony Earthshaw that goes for I think I've seen that thing go for $800, $900 now. And I'm like going, that's insanity.
That's insane. Yeah.
I bought it when I pre-ordered it as soon as they announced it, and got it for I think $30-something or whatever it was. It was nothing compared to what it's going for now. And people are like, "Do you want to sell that?" I'm like, "No." I was like, "No, I'm not selling my Salem's Lot book."
I actually wear this, at my work. I actually work in a grocery store, and I wear this.
Nice.
The apron's down so people can see it. And every so often you get somebody going, "Man, the kid at the window, I just can't get over it."
Yeah,
it's still, I mean, I realized at an early age how impactful that was, because I was a big fan of The Simpsons, and one of the Treehouse of Horror ones where it was like Bart Simpson's Dracula.
I remember that.
You had them scratching at the window, and it's the exact same sound effect. And I'm like going, oh, that's Salem's Lot. Right. So it's funny, even back then, it's like it resonated. It was just, and it was because it was so clever the way they did it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a parody, but it almost kind of paid homage to such a cultural thing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
but anyway, going back to the score, I didn't mean to, like I said.
Oh, you're totally fine. Just a quick question, Donnie. Have you seen the actual movie? Like, do you have a copy of Salem's Lot, the movie, or do you just have the DVD where it's just the actual miniseries?
I personally own a DVD. But I also, only other copy I own of it is just my Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just what they have on there.
Because we don't want to leave you out of the pond going, hey, remember, you're like, this is great. When's dinner? Well, I wanted to walk through some of the different, Sam, you listed some really good ones. First one that everybody talks about is the whole scene with Crockett when he's busted by Coley. Yeah. And the gun in front of his face opposed to in his mouth. Right. So what I'm wondering is, did they do that entire scene? Because I've seen that, but I
I don't own that. So what I'm wondering, did they do the entire thing or just that last part over because everybody goes, oh, you can see the crew guy in the mirror, and so.
Oh, yeah. The only thing I know is that there's a difference in between what I call color scheme, to where when they do the original line where he's about to hold it to his face, that looks normal. We all know that blindfolded.
Mhm.
But then there's a little bit of a bluish greenish tint suddenly. I'm sure they shot it twice. They did the one to the face and one to the mouth. It was probably done in not even 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But you can tell in between, like, close your eyes, Larry. That's the original.
The same. Yeah, it's the same.
And then it goes back and forth between his barrel to the mouth as opposed to his teeth,
Mhm.
his face. So I think it was Tobe Hooper just going, okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, splicing it, editing it, cropping it just right. And probably did it that way. I don't see themselves redoing it. I think it was just they end up doing it twice in that increment. For whatever reason, who decided, either it be Richard Corbis or whoever decided, well, let's do something that's a little bit more darker, or what was in the original script. Maybe they had the pullbacks because somebody from Warner Brothers went, hey, it is TV, guys, hate to remind you.
Yeah.
Let's do another take. Let's do another alternate take that is passable, but still grabs you by the throat. Like this guy, we don't know if he's going to get blown away there or not. He's doing a scare tactic, see how much control you can have.
Yeah.
In the movie, the actual overseas version, they cut that line out, see how much control you can have. So right away, they're going for the jugular. They're going for, guy's going to blow this guy away. And when he doesn't, it's just an empty barrel, and then he's pressed up against the wall.
Yeah.
That's a different take as well. His reaction and his facial structure is different than the US version, because he kind of looks off to the right as if to go, did I get shot or not? And then he flees the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then when he comes out, obviously he's breathing the same, just like the US. And then when you see Barlow's hand come up, it's a different soundtrack, which happens to be the same passage as when Ralphie gets attacked by Stryker in the woods. It's that.
It's the exact same cue. Yeah.
They use that same musical passage instead of in the US, where it's more of a downplayed note. It's
subtle.
It's
subtle. Yeah, it's very subtle. It's almost like it goes, dude. It's almost like that. Not a clicking. It almost has a clicking sound to it when he turns. It goes, dude. It's just kind of like it's very quick. It's not as aggressive as the one in the movie.
In fact, you can hear.
Yeah, that.
You're like,
That's
is that
perfect.
Snake? What was that?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good impression, man.
Yeah, it was actually really good.
Well, how many years?
Yeah.
Wait,
I don't
you
try to do that because I was like, I don't try to do that because it'll just sound bad if I try it.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one with allergies. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say another scene that I actually saw last night for the first time, because I wanted to go over and make sure that everything was finalized.
Yeah.
When it's pretty much Ben and Jason are, in the actual restaurant having dinner. Tell me why the Marston house. I figured that in your package too.
Figured in your back. Yeah.
They just have the scene with them just in one frame, as in where the US version, they show Jason Burke first, and then they pan over to Ben. And that's different when he's holding up the napkin to kind of wipe his mouth. He says, no, never. I noticed that was different. That was a different take. So it's really fascinating to see what Tobe Hooper was doing or what his intention was, because you can tell that it's not quite the take we're all used to. I don't know if it was just leftovers or he didn't have the print. It could be a million things. And unfortunately, with his recent passing, we'll never know.
Yeah.
But I noticed that was definitely quite different. And it's just one of those things where you can tell where David So is still kind of fresh with his lines a little bit, as opposed to the US version. The US version, he feels more confident. I don't know how many takes they did, but it seems like he's just a lot more confident in his timing and his delivery. He wants to answer a little bit quicker with the overseas. He doesn't contemplate the questions as deep as the other version. So I found that out last night, that we had to stop that. Compared to the DVD, we had literally 2 screens going.
Wow.
Wow. Well, okay, that's impressive.
And went, wow, okay, that is radically different. And most people honestly are never going to see that unless you stop it frame by frame, go look and compare, and apples, oranges. I know that was radically different.
That is
No.
very interesting.
And I'm wondering if they did it, if there was a cinematic reason that they did it, just because, because I know that the one overseas played in movie theaters, and
So it's probably 16 millimeter. I don't think it would be a 35 millimeter. Was it?
No, I don't know. It's like, but I know it played in movie theaters, and that's when I think they wanted to make it a little edgier. So again, I remember a lot of elements from it when I was 5, because I was 5 when I saw it, the second part. But I remember when they re-aired it, the scene where Bill Norton gets impaled on the antlers.
Yes.
When they showed the scene, now this was in the miniseries, and it was a close-up of his face, and it was from a different angle.
Right.
The angle was from here as
Right.
opposed to the full-on shot.
Right.
But then when they released it on tape and DVD, I've never seen that shot again. It's always been, you see him just laying there on the antlers, and Straker just pushes him up there.
The version I've got is from TV 44 back in 1988, 1989, where it's just his chin up.
Yeah.
And then it droops down when he's at
the
end.
And his eyes are, like you see his, it's the same. It's just almost like it's just an extreme close-up and almost from a different angle from what I remember.
Right. And that had to be the original print for TV. And then when that either got lost or it's been locked somewhere, who knows where it's at, they decided to, use the
full
version of that, and it's head to toe.
Yeah. And I just, that's such a, I remember that threw me off because I had seen the TV version so many times at that point. That image of him laying there, being impaled on the antlers and laying there, or just hanging there. Yeah, I remember that so well. And then I'm like, why did they do that? Why did they zoom in? But again, I said, well, maybe it was too gruesome for television. But that was the only edit that stuck out to me. And then the edit again, because I hadn't seen part 1 of Crockett and Cully's interaction. So that whole thing, and it's a shorter interaction because he goes on longer in the miniseries, because he says, he's like, just hold it steady, Larry, steady. Because once he says, put the barrel in your mouth, he's like, now close your eyes, Larry. It's very quick. Yep. So I'm like, that was something I'm like, ooh, it's like, that's almost scarier than him talking to him and saying, do you see how much self-control you can have? It's terrific. That's all cut out. Yeah. It was just almost like, open your mouth and put the barrels in. And then it's just like, now close your eyes, Larry. I said, that actually works better. As much as I love the full scene, I always thought that works better, because it's just like, you're done, dude. If
you listen to the soundtrack, Harry did a fantastic job of making tubular bells slow down and pitching and fluctuation.
Because it goes.
It just flavors, and it's enough where your stomach is following that note.
Oh yeah,
the camera angle is just brilliant.
No, and his music is so great. His music is
gory, but it was the interaction, it was timing.
It didn't need the gore. It didn't need it, and I think that's what I think. I think that's what I hear a lot of people worrying about with this new movie, with the new one that's coming out. That it's going to be pushing that envelope just because that's what audiences expect now. And I'm hopeful again, but I think it's amazing. I've really been going back to a lot of 70s films. And just I just feel like it was pure filmmaking. Whereas I feel now it's like, it's focus groups, it's studio interference. It's a lot of people saying, well, I think we should have this because we want to appeal to this demographic and things like that. Whereas back then it's like, we're going to tell this story and hopefully people will be, enthralled by it and want to know more about it and things like that. It was just telling a compelling story. And I feel like there was edge to films in the 70s and 80s that we're seeing, that I saw even as a kid, started going away in the late 80s, and in the 90s everything became kind of, there's some gems, but there was a lot of just like, been there, done that, we're going to follow this blueprint of things that have happened instead of coming up with something creative. And that's why I just saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original Tobe Hooper film, in the theater 2 weeks ago. I had never seen it on the big screen, had a couple of the actors that had played in that movie there. And I'm like obsessed with it now, because it's just like, seeing it on the big screen, I just almost got a bigger appreciation for it right now. And it's like, and again, another Tobe Hooper film. And it's just so funny. And John Dugan even told a story about him trying to get cast in Salem's Lot. There was actually a story that he told during the actual panel, and Hooper kind of wrote him off as like, oh yeah, we're going to use you as like an extra or something like that, or maybe, and they had like a big falling out because of that. And it was really, I have it in my, you guys ever want to watch the video I did, I kept that part in it when he talks about it. It was,
that's crazy.
It was very interesting. As soon as he said Salem's Lot, I was like, oh, I got to record this, because it was like, he was on, because he was saying, oh, he's on. He's like, yeah, the next time I saw Tobe, he was on the back lot at Warner Brothers in Burbank. I'm like, oh God, that's where they shot Salem's Lot. I know that's what he's going to talk about. And that's why I made sure I got that. Yeah, but it was really just, again, pure filmmaking. I love storytelling. And I think that we've gotten away from that in later years. It's about effects. It's about, you know, everything has become cartoonish, and there's a few great filmmakers out there. Scott Derrickson, you know, you have Robert Eggers, you have Ari Aster. There's a lot of great storytellers still out there. And James Wan is somebody I really respect. And I think that's what holds me kind of like, I respect James Wan, and I think that that's why I keep having hope for this new version.
That's the thing. That's why I keep having hope, because of those two guys. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation, but I'm not a pessimist. I don't like that. So I'm going to be optimistic and give it a shot until I hear otherwise. So
you have to give it to these people who have worked around the clock for this long and have dedicated their time and their budget and their hours and their benefits to something like this. Many people forget that those things are behind the scenes. It's not just, here's a movie for you guys to enjoy. It's scheduling, it's conflicting with possibly COVID. It could be just how many things that people behind the scenes don't often really remind themselves that, hey, what if you were doing it? How would you want it? You know, you would take your time, and if you can't take your time, you got a budget deadline. Okay, well, we're out of savings here. Where are we going to get the other half to make it happen here? So yeah, you have to give it a chance. You have to be optimistic, because well, else would they've been this far.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I told Ben, you know, my daughter's currently working on a film set with someone who was on the new Salem's Lot, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I want so bad to talk to that person, but you know, we're not going to get anything right now. They're going to be quiet about it.
Either. I think by now, if there was a legit statement, something would have been on a website, something would have been on a streaming thing like we are doing, just to keep people at bay and go, hey, hang in there, guys. This is what we're up against. This will be what it's going to be. We're trying to match it to this. Just hang in there with us. This is going to be cool. But the fact that it's pulled out, we just have to sit in our chairs and go, okay, well, until then, you know, we have to be patient.
I agree.
It's really funny, Ben, because I think before Salem's Lot, I was watching things like The Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno.
That was my jam back in the day. So that was my
first show that I could literally understand and comprehend as words and as script. And to see somebody as normal as Bill Bixby, and then to have the contacts look so real. And then, just like you said, the fascination of human changing into monster.
Yeah, and I think that's why the vampires really resonated, because I was watching John Stanley and Bob Wilkinson's Creature Features as a kid. My mom and I would watch it on Channel 2 at like 11 o'clock at night on Saturdays. And, you know, Ben, it was tame stuff though. For you know, for me, it was like, it was the Wolf Man or something like that. But
yeah,
I was into the Incredible Hulk. In fact, I was the Incredible Hulk when I was 4. My mom made my costume. It's a great guy. They put grease paint on me and everything. I mean, it's a great. I still have pictures of it. I wish I still had the costume. I have some of my old costumes. My mom and my grandmother made them all when I was a kid. But I really was into the Hulk because I really thought, you know, again, I'm 3 when that show came out, 3 or 4. So that's when I was really getting into it. I really thought Bill Bixby was turning into that. I didn't know that. You know, you don't understand the separation of like, oh, that's 2 different people. I really thought he was turning into this monster, and that fascinated me. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There used to be a Bugs Bunny cartoon called Hyde and Hare, and it's with Bugs Bunny and Dr. Jekyll, and Dr. Jekyll keeps turning into Mr. Hyde. That's like my favorite cartoon ever.
Yeah, and even that was spooky. You know,
I know. And my grandmother and I would watch it all the time. Every time it was on when I was a kid, I was like, "Grandma, it's on!" And I call her Mama. I said, "Mama, it's on again." And she would run in and we'd watch it.
Love
And
it.
she's the reason I watched Salem's Lot. She's 103. She'll be 103 in September.
Oh,
Seriously.
And
amazing. Love it.
she
Love her.
watched part one on the 17th of November in
Wow.
1979. And we were at her house the following weekend. So on the 24th, I just remember her showing me the picture in the TV guide of Ben Mears and Straker in the antique store, the little write-up that's in the second TV guide.
Yep.
And she told us, oh, I jumped so many times. There's this thing in the woods and all this happens. And she's like, you like, I guess, I don't remember the whole conversation. I was 5, but I just remember her telling us that I liked monsters. She said, maybe you guys should watch this. And that's why I watched it.
I totally love your story about heading down the hallway to use the bathroom.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm gonna hold it.
I still remember to this day, after Mike Ryerson in the rocking chair, I could not move. I remember I had to go so bad. And my mom said I was like a statue. I did not move. And it was a long gold couch. And I remember she was sitting on this side and I was sitting on the very end where the armrest was. I still remember sitting there, and the TV was kind of here. Yeah. On the right, and our couch was here, and we had a coffee table here, and you'd have to get up to go this way and then go this way, and then the hall was a long hallway, and it had like a linen closet. There was like where the water heater was, there was a cabinet here, then there was the bathroom, then there was the linen closet, then there was my mom's room. So I just remember I had to walk by. I didn't want to look in the doorway. I didn't want to look down the hallway. I just didn't, it's like, and I just, that's what stuck with me. I held it through the whole thing. And sleeping in my mom's room that night, remembering that dream of being in the root cellar with the vampires. Wow. I'll never forget that.
That's
intense. It's funny what you remember as a kid. And that's something and I didn't want anything to do with that movie after. I said, I never want to see this movie again. Sure. It terrified me to my core. I had never been scared before. That scared me. Wow. And then it's funny how your fear turns into curiosity. Yes. And I got curious about it. And when I saw that it started airing again, I don't know why, but I just was fascinated by it. And
same here. There was something about it. Once you get past that plateau of fear, it's confronting the fear and it's wondering what's on the other side of what stopped you.
And I think it was the duality. I've always been fascinated by the duality of characters. And like, I think that's why I like Psycho so much. The Norman Bates, the mother, the switch, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There's a movie called Secret Window with Johnny Depp. Anything that deals with somebody becoming somebody else and having a completely different personality. And in Salem's Lot, looking sort of like that person, but having a more monstrous outward appearance. That's what drew me to it. And I think that's where I just was hooked. And, I was fascinated by these characters. And I could watch, like Danny watches it every Sunday. And it's like, I have it on constantly. And I have the music on sometimes. Like I'm actually planning to write something now. After doing that doc, I'm planning to write something. It's very cool. And it's funny, I just got this today. It's a notebook that says Salem's Lot on it. I don't know if you guys can
that's
see
awesome.
Nice.
It's just, but that's what I'm going to write it in. I saw this and
wow.
The people have complained about the way that it's lined, but I'm like, I don't care. It's got what I need on the front. So it's like, it's the motivation, and I'm going to do it. If it sucks, it sucks, but it's like, you don't know until you try. So I've been trying to write for years, and I finally, after doing that documentary, taking the time I did, and now I have all that information and I can sort of make it more wordy, because you can only go so long with a YouTube video where people are like, okay, I'm done. Or they're just going to fast forward to the on location stuff. So I was just like going, I want to really go in depth about how important the movie is to me and why. And, I was a lonely kid, and for some reason it was a friend. I was a latchkey kid. I had to stay home a lot. The movie was comfort. My dad was a young guy, in his third marriage when they recorded that for me. And he had different, I was kind of, I was nothing against my father, but it was like, he was like, here's something, go play, kind of that kind of thing. And so that's why Salem's Lot was kind of like, when I figured out how to use his VCR, he showed me how to use it. I'm like, oh, I can figure this out. And then I just started recording cartoons. And then when Salem's Lot got recorded for me, that's all I watched. I just watched it constantly. But it would be over, rewind it, back it up. There you go. start again. So it's like but it was a comfort for me, and a lot of people couldn't understand that. Especially, I think it's more acceptable to be a horror fan now. It wasn't in the 80s. It wasn't. It was kind of looked at as odd, and I got a lot of strange. A lot of people in my family thought I was weird, and I am. But it's like as a kid, it's hard when people think you're strange. You're not into sports. You're not into what the norm is for a kid.
Yeah.
I was into drawing and writing and movies. That's just what I was into.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, but it's when you come from a family that watches the Super Bowl and they're all kind of into working on cars. It's like it's not really like the cool thing to be around them. But
right.
you just I'm glad I am who I am now. It's like
Right.
I think it took me a long time to accept it, and I finally I did, and just I'm still a big kid at 48, and I don't care.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about Salem's Lot, and we'll get to a few more of the zip through the differences in a minute. But
I hope I keep going off on my tangents here.
No, we're here. That's one of the things we're here to do is just talk about our history with this. It was great. But I was noticing behind you, Sam, there, we're going to need to book another day for the three of us to get together to talk about another truly horrifying movie, which I'm reminded of behind you, and that is Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. Did you see it?
I owned it one time. I owned a VHS copy off of cable and the actual DVD.
It's horrifying, but not for the same reasons.
I've never seen it.
Really?
No, and and my cousin Larry was a huge Kiss fan. That's why I liked another reason why I like Monsters. His bedroom was plastered with Kiss posters. I was obsessed with Gene Simmons. I'm like, who's that guy? The Demon. I'm like, I like him.
Absolutely.
And for Christmas one year, he got me a poster of Gene Simmons with a Santa Claus ornament hanging from his lip. And I've seen that picture every once in a while. I don't know. It got wrecked because it was on a door in my bedroom when I was a kid. But I held that as like glory because I just looked up to my cousin Larry so much. And when he gave me that, I was like 3 or 4 years old when he gave me that, and I thought it was so amazing, and just like but that's what I've always just been more fascinated by Kiss by some of their music, and then the costumes. I've always been fascinated by them, but I've heard of that movie, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, if you want to see the ultimate 70s cheese, if you can find it, I can't even find it. I wanted my daughter to watch it. She and I have seen Kiss in concert before, and
that's awesome.
I was like, man, we need to watch that movie, but I'm having a hard time finding it.
I'll be able to track it down, and I'll definitely send it to you. Basically, Paul, I think it was Paul Stanley said it best. It's like Star Wars meets A Hard Day's Night.
Right, yeah.
And then whatever you want to drum it up in between. Yeah, you can't go into it with expectation. They hated it for their own reasons, but again, it was the only way to get closer to the band. You had 3 channels back in the day. You didn't have cable. You didn't have the internet. You literally had TV Guide, friends. This was it. This was the Bible, and you would get
it was huge.
Or you get notes, or you would beg your mom to stay up because, hey, you got good grades in school that month. Can I stay up and watch whatever? This was it, man.
I still remember following the making of Psycho 4 through TV Guide, because there was one, it was summer of 90, and they shot it at the Florida Universal theme park. Okay. And there was a write-up in it, and it had a picture of Tony Perkins, and I'm like, they're making another Psycho, and that's how I found out about it. It's so funny. Like now it's like, websites and all the stuff that I remember that summer, and I was like, when is it going to come out? And it didn't say when it was coming out, and then it released as a Showtime cable movie in November.
Yeah. Well, I want to zip through. Sam, you made some really good notes here. Zip through very quickly some of these quick differences between the versions. Back to Boom Boom Bonnie and Crockett. He's laying beside her in what I see in my version.
Exactly. But and the overseas version, he's literally on top of her.
Okay.
You can barely see it because the lighting is supposed to be where it's supposed to be dark. But right before Coley breaks down the door, he literally is on top of her, not in a compromised position, just laying on top of her, and she's under. So when he comes busting in, it's the same reaction you get in the US. They're both just startled as all get up because they've been caught.
Yeah. I believe her scream is different. There's a little bit of a difference to her. Yeah.
You're absolutely
remember
right. It's a little bit more shocking than saying, oh my God, this is not good. Because there is a different attitude with their scream. It definitely is different.
Yeah. Now we also, I want to ask you about when Mike and Ned are in the moving van truck, the scene has, so again, this is another thing where they've just framed it differently in post, right?
Exactly. And Jeffrey Lewis does have a different line that they don't use for the US. And it's really easy to miss. You wouldn't even think about until, again, someone like me is going to point that out to you. Basically, right, pretty much when Ned looks at me and goes, hey, do you know what this is about anyway? Basically in the frame alone on this, as a matter of fact, Crockett himself set this trip up.
Oh, instead of set up this trip. Right.
They just flip it. And then it goes back to the two of them, but the original US version has the two of them just in the same shot with the line of set this trip instead of set up this trip. And once again, it goes off to a kind of a green blue tint. Like it obviously hasn't been processed through anything or cleaned up. It's just kind of like a different reel has been spliced to the film to just make a cohesive version overseas to provide the instead of the brain thinking. So that's definitely different in itself. But you wouldn't really know it until someone goes, wait a minute, I've known that line all my life. He just
he swapped it.
Crossed it over. Crockett himself set this trip up, and the way that he says up, he moves his head up. And I can see how that would be confusing because a trip up is like a trip up. But if you think, Crockett himself set this trip up, like he's one who set up this whole thing, is how you're really supposed to be hearing it. But obviously over here it was Crockett himself set up this trip, which made more sense. I think it flowed more just as an even keel down the line.
Yeah.
It's so funny because they edited so much of Cully and Mike's interactions out of that movie because they don't really have any. They don't have any. They cut the whole thing out. It's just almost like, and you like Ned and him are together, and you're like, why are they together? Because Ned was just pissed off about Susan skipping out on him with Ben.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, but then you see them have that interaction in the graveyard before Cully shows up. And is that dog going to whine all night? Like all that is cut out completely.
Pretty much know what to do, and he's got the six.
He said, leave the truck here when you get back. I'll pick it up in the morning.
They cut all that out. So anybody who's trying to get into this thing, collector's item and just fun, but this will drive you insane because you don't understand how this started, and then suddenly 20 minutes it jumps to a completely different plateau. Up, and you're struggling to really be coherent with it. If you want shock value, you want the scenes, you want the vampires, definitely, this is pretty cool.
That's faster paced.
But if you want to know why this happened and why that led up to that, the miniseries is definitely going to have complete closure on that.
Well, you also list here, this is something I would not have paid attention to. Mike and Jason. You can hear Jason's heartbeat is present right after he barges through the door. The US version has never had it present, not until he falls out of the window.
And you definitely got to have headphones for it. It's in the center channel. And if you got anything that requires bass, crank the bass control up. You'll hear doo, 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 doo.
It's when he's going up to the door and everything and opens it and you hear it.
And then when he's rising from the chair, his heartbeat gets a little bit louder. Because you can tell his adrenaline's racing. The version has that track completely wiped out. It's completely silent.
You don't hear it. And it's funny because again, I remember that very well because I did watch the shortened version for so long, and I remember that. And it's so, and plus they do excise some of that scene out because in the cut version or the overseas version of the movie, whatever you want to call it, once he starts having the heart attack, it gets to the point where he runs into the side wall before the door, and then they cut it. And it goes right to the jail. It goes right to the jail where Ned is.
Yeah, they totally cut the scene out where he's really struggling and his back's against the wall to go to the other bedroom to make a phone.
Yeah.
And even when he puts his hand over his heart, that soundtrack is really loud. Like dun, 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 dun. I mean, you're just going, oh crap. With the US version, it's tamed because it's for whatever reason. But it has a lot more impact. And just like I said too, like even Ralphie's scratches at the window,
Mhm.
All the interactions with the vampires is like in your face. The
It's
scream-
louder. It's louder, and I remember that. And plus, you
Yeah.
only have the one scene of Ralphie. They cut
Right.
out the one. The first one is cut completely. He's
Yeah.
just in the hospital.
I remember watching it on TV 44 and I jumped up because I was so excited and I didn't remember 2 spots of him. So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, well, that makes sense.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was you, Danny, that was talking about over to Ron Scribner, like, hey, it's kind of weird that he's in his pajamas. Do you think that Danny had a dream of his brother coming up and then he collapsed and then went to the hospital and then he comes back for him? That's just the mystery and intrigue of Toby Hooper.
Yeah.
You
And
can
I
have-
always took the pajamas thing because I remember from the novel that the vampires played tricks on people. And I remember like Eva seeing Weasel really young. And even she does say that in the movie too, or in the miniseries. And
Yeah.
I always said, well, he's wearing almost the exact same pajamas, they're just a different color. So I kept saying that's the only thing I could see. And if you watch both of those shots, I know one isn't in the movie,
Right.
but it's almost like he's more there's a more playfulness to Ralphie's appearance than it is when he's in the hospital. He's more demonic when he's in the hospital. I don't know. There's
Yeah,
scary.
yes.
It's a scarier scene when he's in the hospital, but I love the first one just because of I don't know, just him first showing and the smile he has, and he doesn't really have that in the second one.
No,
like
he-
the image behind you to the left there, it's like he's
Right.
kind of just got like more of a like
He just has
kind
more
of
of a physical
desperation
seductive-
almost. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost a seductive, like
Mhm.
kids feel like it's me,
Yeah.
and they get you, and then he raises
Yeah.
his eyelids.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the second where he's in the hospital, it's like, okay, he's fiending. He's
Yeah. It's serious now. Yeah.
I'm
It's not.
messing
Yeah.
with you. I
Yeah.
need you to do this.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
lot more direct.
Yeah.
I
And
just
that's when
do-
I think they played it up. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. I was just go. You go ahead.
I was just saying that's why I stick by the whole theory that I told Ron was I don't know that there can be another explanation because the first visitation by Ralphie, we already know at that point Danny had gone to the hospital.
Yeah,
Because before he's like, get Dr. Morton. So he was already there.
right.
So I don't know that there is another explanation other than Ralphie's causing Danny to have some sort of foreshadowing dream that he's coming. He's making
That's a
him
good point.
dream this. And so that's why he's in his bedroom and they're in pajamas because it's their house and that's how he's going to dream it. I don't know. I
It's
just
interesting. No, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't thought of it that way. I just always
when
said
he comes to him, he's just suspended in front of him. He's not going after him. He's
right. He's just like, I'm going to come. I'm coming.
And then it cuts. And it's up to the imagination. Hey, was that a dream or it was just him visiting?
was it foreshadowing? Was it, I mean, yeah, it's like, it's interesting because I haven't thought about it that way. I kept thinking maybe they called the doctor and, maybe he gave him like some advice to keep him at home and then something else happens and then they took him to the hospital. So it's like, that's where I was just like, sometimes it's like, I just, that's the way I interpreted it. But again, it's interesting to think about it like a hallucination. It could be foreshadowing. It could be there's many elements it could be.
Yeah, you're right. That's the fun part about it. Well, okay, so I'm also reading here. This is where you really pay good attention, Sam. Ben and Susan come back to Susan's house. It's late. Bill shakes his head. Quiet little town of Salem's Lot with taking off his glasses. You really paid a lot of attention to this. That's a good catch.
It's one of those things. I've always had a photographic memory. Unfortunately, I lost my father about a couple weeks ago, but
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I do appreciate you guys. Really,
I'm so sorry about that.
It was time. He went peacefully, but I get a lot of his descriptive detail, his eye, his accuracy, his demeanor. I mean, just from standing next to the guy, I didn't take a crash course in a college. I didn't immerse myself into anything that made me enhance detail. I think I was just born with it, along with standing beside my father, who was a draftsman. He was a craftsman. He was a sign painter. He was very much a jack of all trades, and just standing next to him and his way of being articulate and detail oriented. I think just zeroed in as a kid, like, hey, I see these things. And when I see them, there's just a file box that just goes, okay, that goes into file C.
Mhm.
I'm not one of those to go back in my brain and go and go and go. I can't find it. I don't know. I can tell you I was there, but I don't remember what the burger tastes like or how the
Yeah.
Kool-Aid tasted. I just know because it left some impression on me. It just, I'm not obsessed with things, but this I am, because it was the very first thing that I could latch onto with both hands in my mind and go, okay, I can conquer the fear. I'm intrigued with the aspect. I'm intrigued the way that actors acted and reacted towards each other. It didn't have to be dialogue. It was exchanges. I love that look where they're out in the woods and Gillespie, goes over to David Soul and finds the little piece of what I know as Barlow's cape.
Oh yeah, that's what I've always thought it was.
And the
Yeah.
way that he looks at Ben,
Mhm.
who? He goes, Stryker. And the way that Gillespie looks at him,
Mhm.
the hair stands up. Because he could have went, who are you talking about? Are you sure? Well, let's go find out. It's just a 1 second glance up from his rim to his face. That stuff just, it's like the adhesive and the glue just goes and it never leaves.
No, I love that scene too, because I love just, and I was wondering when I was in Ferndale if they shot that in Ferndale or if they shot that in Franklin Canyon in LA, because that's where they shot a lot of the cemetery stuff.
Right.
So I'm like,
one shot of Mike behind and it was overcast.
yeah,
And then sunny.
and it's sunny. Yeah. Yeah. Cause actually I found that exact spot and I'm like going, yep, this is where it was, because you have the back piece. And I found the crypt that was actually down the hill from him too. And I'm like going, it's funny. It's just like, he just goes, he gets the dirt and then it's like this profile and then it's back to Franklin Canyon. So I'm like going, that's odd. And I always wonder if there's more that was shot in that cemetery, because that cemetery
I know,
is amazing.
I know. And there's got to be, it's just, again, we all together as a community that share this passion and share this obsession with something that has changed us for the better and has brought us together, know that there's got to be something in the Warner Brothers lot or something that is still not given proper attention to. I was so bummed when the Blu-ray came out because I thought, man, I don't know how long we're going to have Toby. He's not doing well. I was wondering if he had the equipment, so to speak, to dive into the deep end of the pool and find those treasures and find some still pictures and the things that we see in the magazine, that if someone brought to his attention to put those for extras and really have a proper circle of celebration.
Absolutely.
And I think it's kind of up to us that do that. Hence why you did your love for it, your version of it, which is one of the second things at that point. It's not only coming from you, but we're also having input from, obviously Danny and I, and just the general love for it. That's what keeps it going. It's not Warner Brothers.
Yeah. Oh, they don't care about it. And that's what I think I get frustrated about with the fact that I was talking to Fright Rags, the company Fright Rags, because I love their shirts. And in 2014, they did a Barlow shirt. It was the Marston House in Barlow, but they said they couldn't use the name. They couldn't say Salem's Lot. There was certain limitations that they had with the property based on what Warner Brothers told them. And they said they have such a hard time working with them. And I said, that's so surprising. I said, I would love to see, they have a great artist named Justin Osborne, who does some of the most amazing t-shirt designs. And I would love to see him tackle Salem's Lot, because there's a few companies out there that, like, T-Villain does some, Cavity Colors did one back in 2016. You'll find them. I find them on weird sites. Like, I'll find them on like TeePublic and things like that. But I would love to see like a great artist like tackle Salem's Lot, because there is love for this film. And I think a lot of people write it off like, oh, it was a 70s miniseries and
it's dated.
Who cares? I mean, there's people that say that. There's a lot of people that write it off. And I think it's just that people don't understand suspense. I don't think some people understand tone. I don't think people understand storytelling sometimes. They just want it to be jump cut, fast paced, get to the all punchline and no build up to said punchline. And I think that's what that film does brilliantly.
You totally nailed it on the head, because face it, technology is instant. Technology can be very efficient, and technology could definitely save you a lot of time and a lot of cost. But at the same time, it does eliminate the imagination. It eliminates the beginnings of creativity to put the mind and the body on the same boat and present something that is eventually going to shock you. But the imagination leading into it, that complete plateau of thinking, just using your brain to follow that, is what makes it so unique. Yeah, if somebody's going to sit down with this thing, is number one, they're going to fall asleep within the first half hour because, okay, Ben and Susan are meeting down by the, by the low
Yeah.
Okay, I really want my vampires, man. I see Barlow on the cover. What the hell's this, right?
Yeah, where's he at?
Right. Yeah, so they're going to fast forward.
Yeah.
So, but unless you have the patience and you put down your phone, you put down all the devices that rule the planet, and really kind of go back in time and go, hey, at one time, this is how people constructed. This is how people really put over 1,000% and came up with something so grandiose in their head. And the challenges of facing the network and what can be done, what can't be done, the negotiations of it, to be able to put that on your platter and go, here, I know you like chicken, but man, the green beans and the mashed potatoes and everything else with it is going to make that chicken so much richer. Just trust me.
Oh no, that's a perfect analogy for what the film is. I think that's why I sort of, once it's almost like once I had the mini series as a main meal, it's like I kind of was just like, I can't take this little side meal of the condensed version. So that's why I was just always about that long mini series. Yeah, it's like but I appreciate both. I appreciate both because, like you said, there are elements of that condensed version that had some scenes that I think, if they put them into the miniseries, I think would enhance some of those scenes like that. Like I said, I think the Cully scene between Crockett and him in the house works better in the movie than it does in the miniseries. Even though I like both, I think it goes on too long. I think it's more shocking the way that they did it in that movie where he puts the gun in his mouth. I'm like, that's right there. I'm like, okay, this is terrifying. And you could understand why he had because they say he died of a heart attack. I mean, so it's like you can understand it, but he had a gun in his mouth. So it's like, yeah.
And then you get Barlow going, hey, I'm just going to go and solidify that, make that secure. I'm going to scare the crap out of you, give you the heart attack that you're going to look for.
All right. I've held you guys up long enough, but I want to ask you one question before we end it. I know we kind of set out to talk about the differences, but we're really just talking about.
I apologize if I jumped around too much. I feel really bad if I've done that. Okay.
No, that's why I'm saying this is just a great time to hang out and talk about a movie we all love.
Exactly. Because Sam did a lot of work, and I don't. It's like, I mean, the side by side comparison. I don't want to take that away from him at all.
It's just so much to share the love. I'm just. Every time I watch your videos, Ben, or every time I watch your videos, Danny, I'm just like, I want to play on the swing set too, because I have
anytime, man.
We're in the elbow room. And so this has been absolutely incredible for me.
Oh,
and
good. Awesome. Oh, you're awesome, man. No, this has been a lot of fun. It's been a great start to them. Usually Mondays are not great, so this has been a great start to the week in my opinion.
Here, absolutely. Oh, well, all right, go ahead.
I did have a question. That's right. All right, here's the question. And I've seen this hashed out on one of the Salem Lot Facebook page. Ben and Susan, they're at the lake. They hear the noise. We know Crockett's dead. Mm-hmm. He's explaining. I heard someone get out of one car, get out of the other. I've heard this discussed. Yeah, exactly who was driving, who were in the cars, who brought Larry Crockett out there, and all that.
I am going to give you the pleasure, Ben, to go first, and then I'll follow you.
It might. Well, again, and this might be boring to say it this way, but I keep thinking that Cully drove they found Crockett dead in front of the house. Okay. They grabbed all his stuff because he left everything in the house. He left his clothes, he left everything. He just ran out in his underwear. Yeah. So they found his clothes, his shoes, and everything in the car. So I'm assuming Cully drove Crockett's car to the lake, and Bonnie followed him in his truck, and that's why they left town the next day. That's the way I've always thought about it.
Really?
I lean that way too.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm like, if it would have been Barlow and Straker, why would they have left him there? So it's like that's just me. Again, that could be just me. Again, I'm not saying mine is perfect or that's the best analogy of the scene, but that's what I've always thought, because like, why else would they have left town? I mean, they knew he was dead, and the last place he was at was their house, and that could be another reason. But that's what I've always thought.
Okay.
I'm curious to hear what you think. I really am.
Really
Sounds
interesting
different.
because I never thought of that. 40 plus years. That's the first time I've heard anyone's take on that. And it's
Yeah, I've always
fascinating.
thought that. I've always
And it
thought
makes
that
sense.
because he says it sounds like a traffic jam, and it's just the way I
Right.
remember that whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah, somebody get in one car and now the other.
yeah.
Or
Um,
truck.
Or
That's what I
truck.
think. That's what I think.
I think
That's
that's what you think.
That's what you think.
We've been watching this movie too many times. We're quoting everything.
Oh, I could quote it.
Oh,
I know
I
you
could act
could.
it out as a one-man show.
Anytime we're in the car and it's freezing, we'll just look at each other and go, "It's cold in here.
Yeah.
It's a
Should
warm
be.
night."
It's a
It's a
warm
warm
night.
night.
Turn on the heater.
Okay, now bear with me on this.
All right,
I
all right.
always thought, and I could be completely off.
No, none of us are wrong.
I always thought that it was Stryker and Barlow coming up. Actually, it was two cars. It was obviously one car and another car came up.
Mhm.
It sounds off the wall. I thought Stryker was in one car. And either it's Stryker or Barlow that is driving Larry Crockett's car up to the Jeep to frame him.
That's another good because
Because he's new
that makes
in
sense.
town. He is new in town. He's the most easy target. He's the most gullible dude. And to be able to have one, probably Stryker get out of the car
Mhm.
and then go, or at least get out of Larry Crockett's car, get into the other car. Barlow's a passenger and Stryker is the one that's going, and they floor it. And that's a car that I think if you put your foot all the way down, that thing's gonna go. I mean, you can
Yeah,
hear
because that truck probably wouldn't do that.
that truck is a little sluggish.
Yeah, I know.
Probably runs on diesel. So
Yeah.
that's what I at least picture. I mean, it sounds ludicrous. Yeah, Barlow's driving.
No, I want to see Barlow driving. So
That's
I
what
think
I'm
yours
saying.
is much more interesting than mine.
Pass him on
Mine's
the road,
boring.
pull up
That's
at
what
a
I said.
light.
Mine's
on the
mine's
wheel.
boring. Mine's boring compared to yours.
They're dropping when he's
I don't see
on.
Barlow driving like this. The seat lean back. Yeah. Just got to
Awesome
town.
tune, Stryker.
But that's what I thought because I thought, hey, he's the new guy. And Gillespie's like, you're not leaving Salem, Missouri, are you? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Because obviously they parked right behind his Jeep, like, hey, we're going to frame this guy.
Yeah.
So who knows? But man, I never thought of Cully and possibly Bonnie doing that. Like, hey, let's just give it to the new guy and then we'll get out of town because this is just wrong.
Well,
Because
I think
I mean, I'm
No,
not
go.
sure when he goes back inside, the actual bedroom to give Bonnie what she deserves or however you want to interpret that. I don't know how long that confrontation lasts. Because
I just think he smacked her. That's what I always think.
I think so, too.
I don't think anything. I don't see Cully. I mean, Cully had a drinking problem, but I don't see.
Right.
I don't see him like.
no,
I feel like it was more of like. Again, I mean, people might say, why are you laughing at that now? Just because of the society right now. But my whole thing is that
right.
this was a very different time, and
Yep.
I'm not saying it was right, it was wrong, but it was true. And
Right.
you have to look at Cully was the man. It was disrespectful what was going on. It was
He
behind
knew
his
what
back.
was going on.
But he knew the whole time. He wasn't stupid. He had weasel spying on him. He had all kinds of things. He played his cards really well. And in the end, it's like he was the man, and that's the way that I mean, again, it was almost like, it's like it wasn't right. But again, I mean, you should never hit anybody. But again, I don't see it going any further than that. It was like I
Right.
just
Yeah.
feel like it was
But
like
at the same time,
putting her in her place is how I looked at it.
right, yeah. And I keep
That's
thinking once he's
in his
doing
head.
that confrontation,
Mhm.
it happens to be where Barlow is right there.
Yeah,
I
because
mean-
he was right outside the house. Yeah, because you saw the light go out because it was right outside the bedroom.
Yeah, so they're
Yeah.
right there. So when that exchange happened, where basically Crockett gets the fear of God put into him, that's the time that he went back into the bedroom. So I keep thinking somewhere Stryker's nearby or doing something.
Mhm.
I don't know. That's how I've always thought of it. Is that I thought, okay, they're both driving different cars. They're driving Larry's, and
the
Stryker's
Cadillac,
driving
yeah.
his, or vice versa, and then they both meet up.
Yeah.
It's like a
But
traffic, like two
but the
cars.
whole thing is like, see, again, it's like that's why I don't know why I think it was just the thing that always solidified it for me that it was them was the clothes. Because I'm like, how did they get Larry's clothes?
Right.
Because they pull his jacket. Because remember, Noli pulls him out and he goes, he kind of shoves him back into his hands. He goes like, yeah, he goes that, yeah, he's like, because he puts his shoes on the hood and everything. I'm like going, like,
and they're like perfectly folded. It's not like they're in complete disarray. I mean, they are so neat.
And he says, you heard two cars or a car and a truck.
I'm just still laughing at Ben's impression of Barlow driving, you know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, was he listening to Night Fever? Bee Gees?
Yeah.
The elbow out, you know, and the cape just kind of flapping around the windows.
My brain goes on these.
I want to see that. I wish I could draw. I would draw that for you guys and send it to you. I can't draw with anything, but that's an image I'll never get out of my head now.
Well, guys, this has been so much fun, man. Just, you know, a couple guys who love the movie, getting together to talk. I just appreciate you hanging out with me. This has been amazing.
No, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for the invite. And Sam, thank you so much for just the comments on the videos and just your stories and sharing and inviting me to this. It's been, like I said, it's been a blast. It's nice to meet another Salem's Lot alumni or fan, I should say, a fan of this, you know, this amazing film. That it's so funny. Like, I always thought I was on a rock by myself, you know, in terms of who liked it. And it's like, now it's like, it's funny. I did my first YouTube video on it in 2012, just showing stuff that I had. And it became like the biggest. That's when I said, oh, I have something here, because so many people started going, I love that movie. Oh my God. And all this stuff. And I was like going, okay, yeah, it's just funny. Like, you never know.
There is nothing more contagious than a hobby or something that you grew up with, and to have people eventually come into your life and go, yeah, I know what that tastes like. I know what that smells like. You don't have to explain it. I know it.
Absolutely.
That's all the community you need.
That's right.
Agreed.
Cool. And I want to close by saying, very, very, very important. If you love Salem's Lot, you must go. I'm going to put a link in the description below. You must go to Ben's channel, Boogeyman Ben, and check out Reworking the Lot. This is an amazing, amazing work that he's put out.
Absolutely.
And oh my gosh, the detail in his location videos is amazing. So be sure to check it out and click subscribe to his channel as well. Just
thank you. Like I said, I just do it for fun. I think a lot of people were, you know, I did set up a Patreon, but I'm like, if you want to donate, that's cool. But I'm not looking to make money off of this. This is for fun for me. I just want to share it with people, because there's not a lot of people I can share it with. You know, there's only so many times you can talk to people in your family about something before they go, okay, we know you like it.
Moving on.
Yeah, it's like, but you know, I put it out there for people because I'm like, who knows if anybody would have done that, you know, in terms of, there's been other channels that have done it and they've done great jobs, but I just said, you know, there's never been one that was like every shot that I could find in that town. And, you know, Salem's Lot then and now, that site and that page, Ian Bolton has done a great job. And I thank that guy so much, because without him, I would have thought everything was shot in that town and not realizing that, you know, half the cemetery stuff wasn't, that Bonnie and Cully's house wasn't, you know, that was the back lot. And so stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, you know, it was just so much fun seeing it and being able to recognize it 43 years later. I mean, it's the same. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I'll put a link to his website too, because he helped, he helped me so much when I was going to Ferndale, preparing mine. Absolutely. So I'll do that.
Cool. He's amazing. And it's like just to the smallest detail, like addresses of when Ben's driving into town. I mean, they do it from different streets. Yeah. And I'm like going, okay, this is the same street that he's driving down with Jason after the funeral, but he's driving up the street instead of down the street. So it's the same street.
That too.
Yeah. He comes in from the Marson house and goes this way, but then he's coming down this way, and then and then he turns back. I'm like, all right, you just came from there, but it's cool.
Yeah, he goes from Bluff to Crowley to Ocean to Francis. It's
that's quite different around.
Yeah, it's like how did he get there?
Yeah. But only the true fan could tell you those street names.
But one of my favorite moments, I'll just end with this. For some reason, I think one of the biggest ones for me, because I've walked up to Bluff many times, but I had never walked up Crowley, and that's the one where he drives by the sign. For some reason, that one meant a lot to me, and I was just, it was such a beautiful day driving up or walking up there, because my wife didn't want me to walk up there. She said,
Oh.
you're gonna, it's a narrow road, there's no sidewalk after a certain point. And I said, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I just was careful, and
Yeah.
but it's almost like a pilgrimage in some ways. It's just like it's kind of like, you can collect things, but this
Right.
is sort of an experience. I've watched this
Yep.
movie for 43 years, and to actually
Sure.
walk where others have been, that's why walking up to the house was so impactful for me.
I really hope I'm not tying any of you guys up. How did you get permission from that? You just basically asked some people in town that knew them as residents?
So Caroline and Stuart run the Airbnb, which it's called the Ferndale Airbnb, and it's where Sparlow and Strikers was shot. So they bought that used to be what housed the Ferndale Enterprise.
Right.
They changed the building to the quarters, and then they converted the barn into a smaller cottage.
Okay.
It's called the barn dominium is what they call it. And I asked her because her husband was mayor when they shot Outbreak. So I said, well, they must know some people. So all I did was I asked her, I said, do you happen to know who owns the house at 850 Bluff? And she said, yes. She said, his name is, I don't want to say his name.
No.
I just want to be
Right.
respectful, but she's like, this is his name. This is how you can get in contact with him.
Okay.
So I reached out to him and just said, hi, this is what I'm doing. I'm just, all I want to do is walk up the hill. I'm not going to disturb your property or anything.
Yeah.
And they were like, no problem. Just let us know when you're going to be here. And I kept them in touch. I kept in touch with them saying, because I reached out to him, I believe it was mid-May. So it was a month before I was going to go. And then I said, I'm going to be there in a couple of weeks. And then it was like, I'm here. I didn't hear from them. And then I was like I got worried, and I'm like, I said, because this is really how I want to crescendo the video.
Totally.
And then I was actually in the cemetery. I said, well, I'll walk. This was I was there. This was the 13th of last month. So I was in the cemetery doing some shots, and I had sent this person a message. And they said, oh, that time works just fine. So they finally got back to me, and I literally ran through the cemetery and walked up to that spot, because I had already done a lot of the other shots that you saw, a lot of the shot from the opening, and the first shot that you see me walking up there at the beginning, that was from April. So everything else was from June. So when I walk up at the end, that was June. And so I'm standing there and I'm looking up and I'm like going, okay, I'm really going to do this. And it's weird because, again, it's someone's property and I wanted to be respectful. And even though I knew I wasn't going to go, near the house, I just wanted to walk up the path.
Yeah.
And I just remember walking up it, and I had the music I had my earbuds on. I was listening to the music as I walked up there, and it was just, I was shaking. I really remember just shaking walking up there. And as I rounded the corner past the house, it kind of just wraps around, and they've extended it a little bit from what it was in 79. And there was a goat that was standing up by the garage, and it was just standing there looking at me. And I'm like, if this thing runs at me, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I'm just to the point, I'm committed now. So I have to get all this. And I literally did all my shots. It didn't move. It was standing by the garage. I just literally, all I did was I walked up, I kind of rounded, I did a pan shot around, I walked back down, and it didn't bother me. It stayed exactly where it was. So I'm like, was it a statue? It looked like it was real. So I'm like, I'm sure it was a real goat, but it was just, again, and I thanked him, and I thanked the owner, and I sent him I sent him a link to the video. I said, would you be interested in seeing this? They said, yes. Sent them. Cool. Again, completely respectful, didn't want to touch anything. I didn't touch anything. I literally walked up, did the pan around, walked back down, but it meant everything to me. And I don't know if you guys follow, again, sorry, this is going on long, but do you guys follow Thing with Two Heads podcast with Sean Clark and Christopher Nelson?
I don't.
Sean Clark does Horror's Hallowed Grounds. He's kind of what inspired me to do some of these things. He's a guy that's a few years older than me. He's an amazing guy. He's an agent. He represents a lot of really big clientele from the horror, people from the Halloween franchise and The Walking Dead. But he used to do this show called Horror's Hallowed Grounds, and he would go where they shot The Howling, and he would go where they shot The Fog, and he would go to, where they shot all the Halloween movies. And I just said, that's really cool. I want to do that. And I had watched some of his stuff. They were on the Scream Factory releases. So he's a big inspiration for me. And recently he did a video where he collaborated on a video. They had pizza with a bunch of other on location people. So Scott on Tape, Grim Life Collective, Adam the Woo, and they all talked about their white whale. That was my white whale.
Wow.
That was my white whale was going up there. There's no other location that will ever mean that much to me. So I that's it for me. I mean, I have some location stuff. I'm going to do one on the Majestic, which was already shot, shot in Ferndale. I'm going to do one on that and Outbreak. I have footage from both of those.
Sweet.
But nothing will ever mean that much to me. That was it for me. It was like
Really?
walking. That was my last step. My last step was walking up that hill.
I actually walked there like late at night, and that's about as far as I got. But I got to where he parked the Jeep at night.
Oh yeah.
Quarter to 10, and just I felt the same reaction he did in the film, and had that soundtrack.
Yeah.
In my head,
Mhm.
and I'm sweating scared. I thought I'm going 50 this year, and I'm sweating scared like I'm. And I'm walking down the hill hoping that no one's behind me, no one's walking the same direction. I mean, there is something there, but it's not negative, it's not toxic. It's just
it's
you
like
have that kind of imagination and that following that you've had since you were a kid. Something tags along with you whenever you like it or not. It's joined at your hip.
I was that 7-year-old boy that finally fell in love with it, because at 5 I was like, keep this away from me. But at 7, 8 years old, that was something I'm like, oh God. I always thought it was fascinating that you could drive up and around to a building for some reason, that you could drive up a hill and park your car up on a hill. And also people sounds silly. That's why it was like,
people forget that that's literally the front door is the other side. What we look at the back door.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that's exactly, front doors. The back door is like where it's facing out to the street. The front door is right around. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that house looks amazing, because I saw it in 2001. That was the first time I went up there, and it was terrible looking. It was up on stilts, and it was like completely wrecked. It was like on someone it was terrifying in a different way, but it was like, but still to see it is like, I'm going, wow, that looks rough. It looks so nice now compared to what it looked like then. So I'm glad I was able to film it now as opposed to in 2001. Yeah.
It's funny you were talking about, doing your other location videos. Man, Ben, my family's history with The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, out of the 4 people, well, it's pretty deep, because out of the 4 people in this house right now, 3 of us have been on The Walking Dead multiple times. And my daughter, was on there for 5 years, and I'm like, I got to do a locations video. So, within the next week or 2, we're going to go down and do a locations video on Walking Dead sites. But, to me, that's cool. I loved working on that set. I love the people there. I love it, but it's a locations video. When you're in Ferndale, you guys get it. You're seeing something that is connected to your childhood, and it's deeply, deeply rooted, and it means something different than any place you're going to go.
No, agreed. And I think the only like the second location that would mean so much to me to get to walk on is the back lot of Universal, the Psycho House. Because I've never done that. One day I would like, there is a thing you can get where you can walk on the back lot. That is the original house. I know the motel was rebuilt for Psycho 3. Yeah. Well, part of it existed for Psycho 2, but that's another story. So it's like, I won't merge that into this one. But the whole thing is that Psycho is, after Friday the 13th, my favorite franchise. And those movies were, again, one of the first movies that I remember being drawn to immensely after Salem's Lot was Psycho 2. So it's like, that was sort of my introduction to that franchise. And I love that house, and I would love to walk on that set so badly. And that's like the next thing that would be big for me. But in terms of a real town, I mean, that's, I hit
the actual structure and the architectural part of that house is very Marston House-ish, really. I mean,
that's what they model. And I think another thing I remember, again, another side story, when I went to Universal Studios in 1982 for the first time, I was looking for the Marston House, and we drove on the tram tour. We drove by the Psycho House, and I'm like going, like it, but that's not it. And even at 8 years old, I was like, oh, that's not the Marston house. But then I became fascinated by because they did, the front of it does have the windows, and it does look like the 3 windows. It does
got that top eve on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been
Oh no, this
amazing.
was a
I've
lot of
had
fun.
great time.
It's been a blast. Absolutely, man.
Well, guys, I want to sincerely thank Sam and Ben for hanging out with me on this episode, helping us understand the differences between the various versions of Salem's Lot, our favorite movie of all time. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. Chances are you probably have and love it just as much as we do. So, hey, stay tuned for more great content coming out here on Everything 101. In the meantime, I wish for you and your family and friends peace and blessing. I'll see you soon.